Hey everybody, welcome back to Tenza Motorsports. Today we're going to be doing some maintenance to this F30 320. Now this car is getting up into the mileage and age range where there's going to be a lot of maintenance coming up. So the timing chain guides and some other items that are in the car need to be done every 9 years or 90,000 miles. And we are 9 years old and we have 88,000 miles. So this summer, as it warms up a little bit and gives us the opportunity to have this car taken apart for a couple days, and hopefully we will have the black race car put together enough that it will supplement the lack of a daily driver for a few days. We'll be doing that. Today we're going to be doing the brakes. Before we get into that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, like if you enjoy this type of content, comment if you have any comments or questions, and make sure to follow us on Instagram, Tenza_Motorsports. We do a lot of posts and reels, and we do giveaways using our follow list, so make sure you follow us on there. Now before we get into this, because this really is a fairly simple topic, and I'm going to try to make the video fairly quick so it's not super drawn out and boring. It's the same process for every single corner. So I'm going to walk through the first one, and then that's kind of it. It's just a shampoo, rinse, repeat for the rest of the car. And if you have an E36, an E46, E90, F30, F80, as long as you don't have the bigger brakes that take the pins, these are all the same. We're going to take the wheel off, the brake caliper off. There's a set pin. I'm going to have a video up here. If you have problems with your set pins, go watch that, because I show how to extract these, because they do get rusty, and they're Allen wrenches, which means that they can strip fairly easily, and so it's not uncommon to ruin these taking them off. So go watch that if you're having problems with your set pins. If you are interested in buying this kit, I purchased it off of ECS Tuning. They go for around 400 bucks, a little bit more than $400, which honestly is pretty crazy if you're just talking about just general maintenance. Now, obviously, if you wanted to do drilled and slotted and stuff like that, you're gonna go up from there. And we were tempted to do that because the drilled and slotted rotors and some nicer pads really aren't that much different in price. But we thought, where this is just a daily, we're not running any stupid amounts of power, it's doing about 240 horsepower to the wheel, that a set of stock brakes would be fine for this build. And that leads me to my main point of this little segment right here, is that BMWs really aren't that expensive to work on. As long as you're willing to do the work yourself. If you went and dropped this off at a dealership, yeah, it's gonna be a lot more expensive. But if you're willing to do the work yourself, this costs just as much as it was to do a 2005 GMC that we did a couple years back. It was basically $100 a corner. We've owned Civics in the past. We had a 98 Civic, and it was basically $100 a corner, as long as you're doing the work yourself. So that's kind of been my thing with BMWs, and hopefully I help you all be able to work on your own Beamers. But owning an older BMW and taking it to the dealership is absolutely insane. You'll spend more on repairs than the car's worth. And if you're willing to get your fingers nice and dirty on a Saturday here and there, it's really the best way to own some of these older cars. Now, I know this one isn't as old as the 46s and the 36s you've seen on the channel, but I mention that because this is the same process. So I'm really excited to get this done. So we're gonna get the front passenger tire off, and we'll walk through how to do this. And like I said, it's just the same for every single one. So let's get started. So I just found our first difference between this car and some of the older Beamers we work on. The bolts that hold on the caliper are 18s, and on some of the older cars they're 16s. So other than that, so far everything's been the exact same. So what we're gonna wanna do is loosen those up. Once you loosen those up, your caliper is gonna be just hanging on the brake line. So don't let it pull on the brake line too much. Most of the time I'll find a bungee cord or something and hook it around here, and then grab the spring or something like that so it's not pulling on the brake line. So this rotor did have a bit of a lip to it. The brake pads were holding on, and all I did was go back on the back side, and you can actually just pry it open just a little bit. So now we're going to get at this rotor screw here. Once that rotor screw comes out, we'll be able to take the rotor off and then we can start putting new parts on. Looks like I got lucky. I was able to get this out with my little army knife looking Allen key set. Most of the time this won't do it because you can't get enough torque, you'll end up breaking this, but looks like it came out. And then as you saw, if you're having a hard time getting this to stop spinning, you can put a screwdriver through one of these holes and lock it into the back. So here is the old rotor. And then let's go and grab a new rotor. Now where I didn't actually mess this rotor screw up, I'm gonna hold on to this. It looks to be in good condition. I am gonna be using new ones back on this car, but I'm gonna be holding on to this because I use these all the time and I end up stripping them out randomly and don't have time to wait to get new ones. So if they're in good condition, you work on BMWs a lot, it's a good thing to have around. So unfortunately, this side didn't have the sensor on it. So I'm just gonna show what that looks like if you do have the sensor. It goes down into here. So you see that little notch that's in the brake pad there. The sensor clicks into that, and then you'll just run the wire back and find where it plugs in and then just replace it. And that's all it is. And what that does is when the brake pad gets down to where there's no life left in it, it'll hit that brake sensor, and that's what tells your car, hey, your brakes are needing to be replaced. Here are our brand new ones. The side with the clip goes towards the car, and the side without the clip goes towards us. Like I said, if you've done an older Beamer and you don't have a sports package, it's all basically the same. And I'm not sure about the sports packages in the E90 models, but I know that the bigger brakes on these newer ones have like the pins, and you pull the pins out and the brake pads slide out. But even then it's very similar. You've got a rotor screw, you have to pull that caliper off to get your brake pads out. But there you go. Even with recording, this only took me about 20 minutes, and most of that was running back and forth between the toolbox and here where I was working on the brakes. As is most projects, is just running back and forth grabbing tools. All right, so here's a side that has a sensor on it. Here's the OEM one. I'll be replacing this. You can see that little notch there in the brake pad, and all you do is lock that wire into that notch. Something like that. I didn't push hard enough, but it'll lock in there. And then this little bump here faces towards the pad side. And when the pad gets low enough, it hits that and then lets your car know that your pads are getting low. So the other thing I'm gonna do while I'm back here is adjust the e-brake. And the e-brake has to go up pretty high for it to feel like it's tight. So we're going to adjust it, tighten it up a little bit, and then I'll get all this put back together. Well, there you go. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's a little bit later in the day because I did need some help bleeding the brakes out. So we basically ran out all the fluid in the brake lines, and that way we're not having to worry about it for the next 5 to 7 years. You can do this if you've got a socket set kit and a pair of pliers. You don't have to have any fancy tools. It's not anything super crazy. There are some other things that I use, like an open end wrench and an Allen key set, and some of the plugs that were difficult to get undone. You use like a small screwdriver or something like that, so you can not break the connectors when you click them together. Things like that, but it's really just that simple. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section below. Thanks everybody so much for watching. If you are interested in any Tenza Motorsports merchandise, make sure that you click the link in the description below. I do have a Teespring, and I can make custom stuff on request. Thanks again for watching. We'll see everybody in the next video.
Bam!